were hung up. Similar to how, like, if you go to Target to buy baseball cards, they don't have the...
There's no boxes.
I don't know. It's been 20 years since I bought baseball cards, so I don't really know. But the reason that their blister pack is popular for the retail stores like this is because Toys R Us gets shipped the Box Mirage, but they only have one price tag, and that's the booster pack price tag.
Right, they don't know what the box costs.
Exactly. Yeah. It's the $2.99 price tag. So our good friend Ben, the people stocking Toys R Us, their miss. They put the booster box on the shelf.
For $2.99.
Put the tag out there. Ben's like, yoink! Drops this brick down in the register. Like, I just don't... The part that doesn't make any sense to me is if you're the employee who is ringing this up, maybe the 90s were a crazier time than I thought, but that's just a lot of stuff for $3.
I think it's just that, like, especially at places like that, you're so dead inside that you don't care. It's not like it's coming out of your paycheck. Like, if it rings up right, screw it.
Well, that was the thing, is obviously, the barcode no working, so Ben had to, like, take him to the shelf, show him where it was. This trick only worked a few times. But Box of Mirage, $2.99 plus tax.
Not bad.
That's how it worked out. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is why booster packs are in blister packs for the most part. Although nowadays when you go to Walmart, there's all the crazy, like, extreme value...
My favorite was, one of the places we stopped in the little hunt that we did was Target.
Okay.
And Target has these things where they don't even have a name, right? It's a plastic, like, deck box that you could probably fit, like, 2 full decks with sleeves in. Okay?
Yeah.
But in it is only two sealed precons that are completely random. So, like...
Like the 40 card precons or like 60?
No, like the 60s.
Alright, that's not so bad.
Or like dual decks and stuff. So, like, one example I picked up was, like, one of the Ravnica, precon, like, starter decks, and the Koth deck from Koth vs. Venser with the foils removed.
Oh.
Yeah, it's just the decks.
Well,
so what happens is...
Koth is a card in that deck.
But the package is separate. The packaging on that foil is separate.
Right.
So what happens is people steal the foils out of those packagings, and the Target just says, fuck it, throws the rest of the package away, and just sells, like, the cellophane wrapped 60 cards in a, like, plastic box for $20 with another one.
So this is mostly a fail on the part of Wizards product packaging.
Yeah, I mean, it's just kind of weird because, Wizards is so all about the local gaming store and the small store.
Right.
I feel like if Target cared, or if Walmart cared, really, like, they could get better pack. Like, if they said, hey, Wizards of the Coast, we decided we want to sell a bunch of Magic cards, like, not only are you going to give us priority, you're also going to give us, like, better packaging to do that with.
Here's a dump truck
full of money.
Well, they already do. That's where blister packs come from. That was the answer to the blind retail market. I think that the dual deck situation is just one that hasn't quite evolved to that stage yet.
Yeah.
Eventually, we'll get to a part where the packaging department of Wizards of the Coast will make a product that can sit indestructible on the shelf.
Just bulletproof glass.
Who knows? I don't know. It just reminds me of old days.
They'll need it for their cube product. That thing is going to have to be, like, in a coffin, that's, like, bolted to the floor.
It only took you 7 minutes to bring up your home run from last week.
Yeah.
Eck's greatest Magic-related idea possibly ever.
It's up there, along with...
Cytoplast Rootkin.
Otherworldly Journey.
Oh, yes. Yeah, you full marks.
Yeah.
Full marks.
Anyway, so shall we...
Yeah. So...
I've got some packs. We got some packs lined up.
All right. Let's pick one pack one day.
Okay, so in this pack, which is not very good, Crater Hellion, Unburial Rites, Nathalia Drownyard, Damnation, Rancor, Troll Ascetic, Manaleek, Swans of Bryn Argol, Spikeshot Elder, Chandra Nalar, Vivid Marsh, Memory Lapse, Fetid Heath, Graveborn Muse, and Fissure.
Fissure, how are you still there?
I know, right? That was just for you.
We'll be removing that card soon. This seems like an easy damnation, but at the same time, I think there's an opportunity here to just go deep in the draft and take either Chandra or, if you're feeling real saucy, Hellion, with the intent to table Swans.
Oh, I see where you're going. Interesting. I don't know. It's funny, you know how we always talk about how black-white is only playable if you first pick Fetid Heath?
So are you saying you want to first pick Fetid Heath?
No, but I'm saying that if you wanted to play black-white, that's what you take.
Oh. Interesting. I mean, I could take Damnation and still play black-white.
Because
I'll probably table that Fetid Heath that no one wants.
Yeah. I mean, I think Damnation is fine here. This pack is really underwhelming on power level, and nothing really jumps out at me at, like, you have to play me, I'm the best card in the pack by a mile. Like,
well, I think that
Mana Leak's okay, Vivid Marsh is fine.
Like, if I had to rank the cards on power level...
Unburial Rites is quite good. Even in a non-reanimator deck, that card is just excellent value.
I think it goes Damnation, Chandra, Mana Leak, Vivid Marsh.
Yeah.
Like, those would be the first 4 cards I would expect to be taken out of this pack.
Yeah. I don't know, I think... Yeah, this pack is just kind of funky because, like, there's just no stellar cards, which is, like, a rarity for a cube pack.
Yeah, I mean, there's barely a white card.
I don't know, like, two halves of a white card.
Like, I'm also fine taking Chandra Delar, just getting back Hellion. I mean, like...
You're gonna get back Fisher.
Yeah, I'll definitely get that card back.
I think it's probably Damnation.
I don't know. I think you're kind of sitting on it longer than I thought you would have.
You might get back the Drown Yard.
Sure, and who knows? You know,
might be okay.
Could be blue-black at that point. Could want that Unburial Rites or that Fetid Heath at that point.
Alright, so we agreed on Damnation here?
I want to be different. I want to take Chandra, but I still take Damnation, yeah.
Chandra just has been very unimpressive.
Really? I really like that Chandra.
She's okay, but she's just not... She's so slow. That's my biggest problem with her.
I mean, you could think of her. You could think of her as kind of like a Fissure plus,
right?
Because she's probably going to come down and kill your biggest problem.
Yeah,
and then
except she's slower than Fissure because it's a sorcery.
All right. Well, I'm not splitting hairs here. Yes. Whatever. How has Drown Yard been for you? It's been a lot of fun, actually.
It's worked both ways,
which is exactly what we wanted.
Right. But I mean, I feel like milling yourself versus milling your opponent, neither side has really become like the obvious usage of it. I feel like it's very split. Like half the time it's been...
Oh yeah, I know.
Like half the time when it shows up, you're milling yourself, and half the time when it shows up, you're using it to mill yourself.
Yeah, I think that's exactly what you want. I mean, the thing about Drown Yard is... I think when we added to the cube, I was joking about how, Millstone used to be its own thing, so how could Drown Yard not be its own thing? But you can't open it and be like, oh, I'm taking this because it's a win condition, because it's like, well, it's a win condition that requires 2 colors of mana. And then you also can't kind of, like, draft towards blue-black and then be like, aha, I finally found the linchpin of my strategy. I think that a card like Drown Yard, like, I'm most actively looking to pick it up when I'm trying to play Reanimator, and I'm secondarily looking to pick it up when my blue deck is having a hard time finding a win condition.
I think I definitely want an index where it can play both directions, where you can benefit from the milling, but also, like, you might just stall out, so having the ability to, mill your opponent out as a win count is okay. The added side benefit of occasionally screwing with, like, Vamp Tutor, Enlightened Tutor kind of effects.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. That's like the whole idea behind putting Predict in the cube.
Right, just to mess with that.
Right. I mean, that if we made the blue cube, obviously a card like Predict would go in.
Right.
Or if the cube was 3,000 cards, we'd have Predicted there just because it's so much... But I mean, anything that... There's so many sweet effects that just cycle.
Right.
And then Predict gets to, like, next level those things.
Yeah. Alright, so let's do some middle-of-the-road selections. We're agreeing on Damnation.
I mean, we're agreeing with it's the best card. I wish we could be different on this. I wish I could, but I'm not snapping off Chandra when there's a Damnation to be had.
Okay, so here's our first middle draft scenario. So you have taken in order Falcon Wrath Aristocrat, Lava Claw Reaches, Pack Rat, and Hell Rider. The pack that you are past at this point: Prismatic Lens, Thalia, Guardian of Thraben, Gaddock Teague, Savage Lands, Trinket Mage, Giant Solifuge, Wicked Bough Elder, Guardian Idol, Keldon Vandals, Treetop Village, Devastation. What are you taking? Why?
Prismatic Lens, and that's because I've got a couple of 4-drops that I want to power out as early as possible, and it's mana fixing.
Interesting. No thought to Keldon Vandals?
Keldon Vandals will probably table if they're not another aggressive red drafter. Hello, Kenny. Good evening. I think this is actually a really good pack. I think that there are choices to be had here. I think that the trap card in this pack is Savage Lands.
I think the trap card in this pack is Solifuge.
Oh, I think Solifuge is the easy one to dismiss because you already have 2 4-drops.
Right, but at the same time, it also is the most aggressive card in the pack that's in your colors. So it's easy to say, like, oh, keep them coming. Like, 4-power haste guy, sweet. You know, Trample Shroud, like, get in there. But, you know, like you said, you've already got 2 of the better, if not the 2 best aggressive 4-drops in red-black. So, I agree actually with Kenny. I was going to say Guardian Idol versus Prismatic Lens. You know, Guardian Idol being effectively more aggressive than Priz Lens.
I don't know. I mean, there are a lot of scenarios where I can also, like, kind of spin down my mana with Lens in the aggressive decks. Like, with Guardian Idol, there are a lot of circumstances where you kind of have to take a turn off to cast it if you don't curve out perfectly.
It is clunky.
Where Prismatic Lens, you can go, like, on turn 3, you can, like, cast it, also cast a 2-drop, which is very relevant.
Chainwalker.
So, yeah, I mean, best case scenario.
Or even a 1-drop, like, you know, filter a mountain into a black for Cartophage or something.
Or if you ended up splashing Swords of Plowshares or Rancor or Ancestral Recall or something, like, well, which you obviously would.
Completely legitimate.
So yeah, I mean, I do like this pack because I think I feel like there are a couple of traps. I definitely would want to steer away from Savage Lands because I already have a land that comes into play tapped. I would want to steer away from Solifuge because I want to fill out the lower part of my curve. In a deck where Hellrider is usually the best.
Hellrider is the top.
Exactly.
And Aristocrat also being at the top is fine. And they actually work well in the same deck anyway, which is fine.
I mean, Aristocrat's kind of like the new school giant Solifuge anyway, in my mind. Mm-hmm. It's like, that's almost where you get really redundancy.
There's a question in chat, how has Devastation been? The answer to that question will be revealed later in the show.
Ooh.
Foreshadow. Anyway, obviously Devastation, not really a pick I'd want to take here. And none of these cards really scream, jump out of your very well set up black-red so far.
I don't know, I mean, 2-mana artifact accelerants are really key, so I'm happy with that Priz Lens. I hope to table, like, see, here's a scenario where I'm happy tabling Vandals, Solifuge, Savage Lands, or even Keldon Vandals, or maybe go real deep. Devastation with
Falconwrath
Aristocrat.
So I'm not going to say that I don't agree with you that it's a 2-mana rock here.
Mm-hmm. You're just opting for the one that has power and toughness?
Yeah. Also, with any luck, I will not be playing either of them in this deck.
Interesting. I think that's the deck very bold.
This is the deck that does not want to spend its time and mana to play mana rocks. It gets the least out of the acceleration, and it wants to stay on curve with guys. At least Guardian Idol is kind of a guy, so I'm willing to give it a bit more of a pass. But I would much rather be just casting more dudes than casting artifact mana. Like, even though this is very early in the draft, I'm clearly looking to be very aggressive with Hellrider and Aristocrat and Packrat. I'm looking to just be as fast, as angry as I can be, and artifact mana doesn't really work with that.
Yeah, I mean, let's say it doesn't really work. I just think that you're kind of covering your butt too. Like,
sure, and I mean, I'm not disagreeing that the artifact mana is not the pick here. I just think that in a perfect world, this would not be a deck where I have to play it. Yeah. So I'm taking Guardian Idol with the hopes that it sits on the sidelines. If that makes any sense.
Interesting. I don't think I'd want to use my 5th pick for a card that I would hope to sit on the sidelines, but I think the debate here is whether or not to take a card that you want to use as a creature, or if you're really trying to maximize your mana early in the game. I'm sticking with Priz Lens. I'm happy with it. I understand taking Guardian Idol, though.
Alright. Let's go to the second scenario.
Whoa, we have a ton of cards.
Yeah. So now we are 6 picks into a draft. So it's a slightly bigger draft pool. This is what happens when you're sitting on Tapped Out making these packs.
It's a lot of fun.
Oh yeah, keep coming.
Tappedout.net. Look for the magic box.
So
if you're looking to waste hours of your life on end like we do.
Our picks in order are Watery Grave, Skull Clamp, Mask of Memory, The Abyss, Far Away, the split card, and Maloku the Clouded Mirror. In the pack that we are past, we see Char, Hellrider, Volrath Stronghold, Terramorphic Expanse, Lodestone Golem, Zuranorb, Mindstone, Covetous Dragon, Bloodstained Mire. What do you take and why?
Okay, so here, again, I've got a fat 4-drop that I want to power out usually, because usually I'm trying to play Blue-Black Control, where Abyss is like half my win conditions. Additionally, I like this Maloku Skull Clamp action we've got going on. It kind of makes that Mask of Memory kind of out in the middle of nowhere.
We have, like, the Maloku and Abyss obviously are kind of like odd bedfellows, but like...
Oh, I mean, they kind of work well together, actually.
Yeah.
I mean, if you could cast Maloku and turn a million.
Yeah, so it kind of makes for like a very... We have like a number of interesting ways we can go, where we can just kind of go Maloku Skull Clamp and try and just win off the back of that interaction solely, or we can kind of skip a couple of our picks or make them worse and go for a heavier control shell. Interestingly enough, I kind of like Lodestone Golem here.
No, I think... See, here's the thing. If I already had a Mind Stone in my pool, I'd be way more interested in that Lodestone Golem. Like, let's say that Mask of Memory was a Mind Stone. Mm-hmm. I think this would be a Lodestone Golem not close.
Interesting. I mean, I definitely like the concept of Lodestone Golem in this deck, both being a guy to hold our very good equipment, as well as a guy that lives through the Abyss, as well as just kind of wreak general havoc on opposing mana curves.
Yeah, I agree with all those sentiments. I mean, artifact creatures with Abyss are their own kind of strategy. We already have some artifacts that don't really inhibit us. It's kind of a fork in the road here, where it's like, my good cards are already more than 4 mana or more. So Lodestone Golem doesn't necessarily play in the cards I have access to right now that are strong, but it's still really early in the draft. And because of that, like I think I'd just still rather have Mind Stone over Lodestone Golem. You can't have enough 2-mana artifact accelerants, especially early in the draft process, when you don't know where you're going to go.
No interest in like Bloodstained Mire for fixing with our Watery Grave?
Sure, I'm interested in it. I'm just not interested in it as much as I am a 2-mana accelerant. Like, I think...
So you're putting 2-mana accelerants over almost anything with a deck like this?
Oh, yeah. I'm putting 2-mana accelerants over most things most of the day. And that's one of the... I mean, like, this is a prime example of why we don't run Signets.
Well, yeah.
I think that, a great barometer for how you want to draft your deck is, especially early, when you're just, with Cube, you often take just powerful cards. And when you take just powerful cards, you're not really looking at mana colors. You need the fixing. So having a Watery Grave and a Bloodstained Mire is very key. Since here we have a black mana symbol, two total black mana symbols, 2 total blue mana symbols, and some brown cards, I'd rather just make sure that I can accelerate and cast the most powerful spells as early and consistent in the game as possible.
Sure.
And that's why I would want to take Mind Stone. Like, if my pool was like Watery Grave, Skull Clamp, Mask of Memory, Abyss, Swords to Plowshares, Lightning Bolt, like, I would be like, oh yeah, well, we have to take a Bloodstained Mire. We'd probably have to take a Terramorphic Expanse here. Mm-hmm. But since it's not, I'm just taking an accelerant.
At what level of card power for a deck like this do you take spells over a 2-mana artifact?
Like what quality of spell?
Yeah, like if there was a Cryptic Command in this pack, would you take Cryptic Command over Mind Stone?
Probably not with those 2 equipment staring back at me.
Would you take Forbid over Mind Stone?
No, well, I mean, it combos well with Maloku. I can definitely answer that it's got to be spells under 5.
Right.
I mean, there's
Would you take Damnation over Mind Stone?
Yes. Although I might take Consecrated Sphinx over Mind Stone.
It's pretty obvious you would take Jace the Mind Sculptor over Mind Stone. Would you take any of the other Jaces over Mind Stone? Bellerin or Memory or Architect of Thought?
Architect of Thought? I would not take Bellerin, but I would... No, Bellerin's even... I don't know. The Abyss is really what's alluring in this scenario, because Abyss protects Planeswalkers.
You really like the Abyss.
Yeah. I build around it most days of the week.
Yeah. Alright, so... I can definitely get behind Mind Stone here.
I mean, I feel like I just kind of dominated this one. Like, what were you going to go with? Oh, you go Lodestone Golem? You still want Lodestone Golem?
I mean, Lodestone Golem, it really what it... what I'm thinking about right here is if I'm looking to make the Abyss as good as I can, I'm looking at how many artifact creatures or spells that I can get that survive the Abyss compared to how many accelerants I can realistically get my hands on. And I feel that there is more artifact-based mana accelerants in the cube, even strictly at 2 or under, than there are artifact creatures that I'm looking to play to maximize the Abyss.
Okay.
If that makes any sense.
Yeah.
Like, Lodestone Golem, I mean, he doesn't really play exactly that well with what we've got going on, but he does the job fine. You know, if that was instead of a Lodestone Golem, if it was a Masticore or, you know, a Grid Monitor or even just regular Juggernaut, you know, I think the argument would still kind of stand. We just have a lot of mana in the cube right now that we could potentially get. That said, there is a bit of a trap in terms of drafting the top of your curve before you draft the bottom, because it inherently restricts you a lot more.
Yeah, I think
the later portions of the draft.
I think that's something that newer cube drafters have to be very aware of as well. Is that oftentimes so many 5s, 6s, and 7s look so appealing, your eyes really go wide. It's hard not to just kind of slam every Sphinx.
You end up with
Titan and
mono 5s or mono 6s.
Yeah, that's definitely
like that's one of the most I don't know if frustrating is the right word, but concerning things when you like finish pack 1, then you look over what you've drafted, and you've got no cards under 2 and 6 cards over 5. And now, like, every pack, now you're very cognizant of your mana curve, and you're like, I have to take these 1 and 2 drop spells, I have to take these smaller effects. So even if you see better 6 drops, or better 5 drops than what you had, you know, you've got whatever, you know, you get past a Consecrated Sphinx, all of a sudden now you're saying, oh, well, I have to take this Mana Leak, or, you know, this Doomblade over it, because I have to be aware of my curve.
Right.
So, you know, putting that extra constraint on yourself because you've already drafted your top end can be a bit of a problem.
Yeah, I mean, I think here we've actually had an opportunity to kind of back into a good topic of discussion for newer cube drafters. You know, we mentioned, we touched on it previous weeks where we kind of do a little bit of Q&A where it was like, you know, answering why you take land so high. And I think that those kind of 2-mana accelerants are kind of go hand in hand with mana fixing for most other decks that aren't kind of like the 3-color or indeterminate color combination, and that it's you're never wrong taking a multicolor land in a pack, and you're usually not wrong 90%. Like if you're 100% not wrong, and talking absolutes with Magic is always terrible, but if you're 99% right to take a multicolor land, you're 90% right to take a 2-mana accelerant.
I mean, there are certainly decks where 2-mana accelerants are not going to be what you want. Similarly, there are going to be decks where mana fixing lands are not going to be what you want. Those decks are usually the same, and they're like mono red or white weenie.
Or like 5-color zoo or something stupid like that.
Well, that you want the lands.
Oh, right. Sorry. I was talking about the two
if you want neither, you're very likely a monocolored aggressive deck. Mono black, mono red, mono white. Maybe mono green. The mono green tends to have more of a ramp aspect to it.
Yeah, mono green usually has more uses for those things, but not exclusively. I mean, you can... But it's ironic with mono green that... Yeah. Right, that's just a topic for another time. Well, there we have it. That kind of brings us to the usual start of the show. We got a little more news that kind of interacts with Cube this week. We're trying desperately to have show notes this week, so we're a little more professional, not just jumping around all over the place.
Well, it was tough, you know. We're in the lull once again between set releases, between easy topics, you know, that people want to hear about.
But we're also kind of on the outside looking in, because the rest of the Magic community right now is so stoked about Modern Masters.
Right.
And you got to feel for the people that it's like, well, I own a cube. I'm not going to throw down.
Have all those cards.
I'm not going to throw down $1,000 to host 3 drafts.
Yeah. Jesus.
With Modern Masters, it's a little rough. So it's hard not to just kind of talk about it again and again. I think we did a pretty good job covering Modern Masters and its cube applications already on the show, and
One question I want to see answered is, and this is a purely theoretical kind of a non sequitur related to Modern Masters, what the prices of those cards will look like following GP Vegas if it continues upon the numbers path that it is currently set out on.
Well, this week was the first kind of inclination. There might actually be a cap on how much product will be showing up in Nevada.
Right.
Because, like, up until this week, for a Grand Prix, this is an opportunity.
For those who are not aware, the pre-registration only for Grand Prix Las Vegas, which is, at the time of this recording, 12 days away, makes it the largest North American Grand Prix in history.
So it already passed Charlotte? Because Charlotte was... I don't think it's past Charlotte yet.
What was Charlotte?
23 something.
Oh, okay. So
I think we're at 21, yeah.
It's at right around 2000
Kenny's got our back. Kenny's got us here.
So it's pre-registration level.
And I mentioned this on the podcast I did last night. Charlotte was... not... So I had the 3 in the wrong spot. It's like on the prices, right? You have the 4 numbers.
Right.
Like, what's the price of the car?
Mm-hmm. Needless to say, it's a lot of people are pre-registered.
Magic players are among the laziest people that play games. And I say that lovingly. I've known them for almost 20 years, and we all like to show up at the last second and play Magic. This is astonishing to me. I think
it speaks to the value of the product. In terms of, like, the literal street value of
it's
the product.
total package.
Yeah.
It's the total package.
It is Lex Luger.
GP Vegas is the closest thing to a Magic Woodstock that we will have.
I don't
even know how long.
People have been waiting a long time to have a Magic event in Vegas again because of how long they've kind of avoided that.
The mob has kept them out long enough.
Well,
the Wizards have finally come back.
I
knew there was a 3 in there. 2693. That's
for
the
Charlotte.
That's the Charlotte attendance.
So effectively, GP Vegas is at the moment 500, 600 people away from being the
500 and 600 lazy people,
right?
That don't want to phone in or put in the credit card ahead of time. Now, if we were to make an over/under right now on Vegas,
the line I set this week, which was effectively the last time that I was paying attention before today to the numbers, I set last weekend at the line. The reasonable line was 3,000.
The last GP in Vegas was not 2009.
It was well before that.
Last GP in Vegas was like 2001, I think.
Yeah, because it was pre-Poker Boom.
Invasion. Oh, it was definitely pre-Poker.
Poker Boom is what stopped Magic events in Vegas.
Not exclusively,
but they have like that was like part of it.
Yeah, definitely not 07.
No, keep going.
Bring it back. Fact checking. That's what our show is all about.
Anyway, so
last weekend you set the line just at 3K,
and that was like several days ago. I said 3,000 was a reasonable number to expect.
Interesting. I think it's ironic because when the announcement was made, I was actually in Vegas. I was actually in Vegas with a store owner, and we were having this conversation. And I think we kind of came up with like 32.5.
I think it's reasonable. I'm surprised that even in the couple days since I looked, because I mean, like Friday or Saturday was the last time I checked, and it was like 1,500. And I was like, damn, that's a lot of people.
Yeah, it's interesting.
And now it's already up to like 2,100.
There's not more incentives coming out to pre-register at this point.
In fact, there are less.
Fewer. The play mats are effectively gone.
Well, and they had...
The VIP packages are also gone.
Is done. You can't have 3,000 VIPs, no matter what Vegas
that would be hilarious. I don't know, like having 600 is already hilarious. Like, I just want to see the room layout for 600 VIP matches.
Right.
It's going to be a cluster. And I mentioned this. I was actually I was on Tap and Sack podcast last night. That's what they call themselves lovingly. Our good friends at Tap and Sack. We talked a little bit about GP Vegas, and to me, it's going to be that Magic kind of culmination convention that I think that we really want. What Gen Con might have been 15, 18 years ago in terms of Magic, where people would just come out to be there. I think that's kind of what Grand Prix are today. I mean, we haven't heard that they're doubling the prize pool. We haven't heard that it's like there's going to be all these other tournament-related incentives to go there. It's just an amazing opportunity to go and be with this many other people, so many you've read about, read from, heard about, listened to, seen. all converging on this one location to hang out for the weekend. That location happens to be where liquor flows like water. Actually, probably better and easier than water. And it happens to be with the greatest value set that also just happens to be one of the greatest limited sets of all time.
I mean, it definitely it's this perfect storm. What I want to know is if you had like a time machine, you go back to when the competitive play meeting, like, you know, we're setting. Okay, we're gonna have one event for Modern Masters and Grand Prix. Where do we hold it?
Go on.
It'll be in Las Vegas. And then
come on in, Vin.
How many?
You're on the podcast.
Yeah.
My roommate Vin, everybody.
You're not quite on the podcast. Keep coming around, and then duck down a little bit.
There you go.
Hey everybody, that's Vin. That's
What's
Vin.
going on, guys?
Vin played a lot of Magic with us.
So
and now there's Vin's crotch. Oh no, it left.
Over under.
Might make an appearance later.
Over under 3250 Grand Prix Vegas players. The current per edge total is at 2100.
Over.
You take the over.
Yeah.
All right.
You guys all heard that. Over. Yeah.
Place your bets.
Magic players are lazy.
Yeah.
There's gonna be a
unless
lot
people
of...
think they're going to run out of spots because of all the pre-regs, like not everyone is going to pre-reg.
No. Tim
Especially
Shields.
this far in advance.
Tim Shields, who is the excellent tournament organizer, the location they have is huge.
It will not max out.
No, it will not max out.
It's more a concern of will the product potentially, like, there's like rumblings that might be a thing that happens, is like they run out of packs.
Oh, sure.
Or something like that.
Which would be a first. I mean, again, like, you know, when you run a store and you run a PTQ, like, you have to get your product from a distributor. For a Grand Prix, Wizards actually supplies you with this stuff, and I don't know when they can really, like, keep pressing the more button to get, like, 5,000 people's worth of stuff there. But, I don't know. I mean, yeah, we'll be down a little while.
All right,
play a little Magic. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
You know anything from the store?
I'm good.
All right.
Go Oakland.
That's a good podcast.
Yeah.
Fine radio, ladies and gents. So anyway,
yeah, it's live. What do you want?
If you could go back in time and look at the Wizards meeting that decided that this was going to be a Modern Masters Grand Prix and we were going to have it in Las Vegas during the summer.
Okay.
What if you were to ask them then how many people
they would have thought of? They would have thought 2,500. I bet.
I mean,
and they would have been happy with that number.
It'll be. I mean, it's just it's kids are out of school. It's Vegas.
Everyone's graduating this week from college and high school and all that stuff.
Exactly.
Right?
They take their graduation checks and blow on a plane ticket to Vegas. Like
so what I keep hearing is that this circumstance is so unique that it will possibly never happen again for Magic. I mean, unless if the game continues to grow at the rate it's growing,
right? Obviously, it's a moot point.
We'll look back, 24, 36 months from now and be like, Vegas was a sign.
I don't see the amount of players for this event being broken, especially by a North American Grand Prix. The only place I could see a larger Grand Prix taking place would be Europe, and it would have to be something like that is one of like the home run in terms of like player turnout kind of Grand Prix. Like I know, especially in Europe, like the legacy GPs tend to be very, very well attended.
Madrid was big back in 2010, and that was over 2,000 people. But you can't compare a legacy in Europe to a limited format in the United States,
right?
Especially the most sought after limited format ever.
In America, I don't see that number being broken without a similar set of circumstances of like major metropolitan hub where people want to be in an easily accessible time of year and a set that people are really excited about to play. I don't see this number being broken without several more years of Magic's current rate of growth, like 5 years minimum.
Yeah, I think in the pre-steroid era of Magic, this will easily be the largest event
absolutely
possible. So, yeah.
It'll be interesting. I mean, I would not want to have to clean the bathrooms at the convention center.
At the Cashman Center?
Yeah.
It's not, thankfully Cashman's is like, it's more than
it's
just
built
that.
for this.
Yeah,
I mean, I'm sure the facilities will be fine.
It's only $4 for parking.
Who has a car? But
people are driving from all over the place to get to this.
If I was going, we'd be driving.
People on Facebook and Twitter are asking, from the Eastern Seaboard, anyone have a spot in their car?
That's a bold move. I don't know.
I'm not shitting you.
If you've never driven in the surrounding area of Las Vegas, dear listeners, don't ever do that willingly. It's in the desert, very literally. If your car breaks down, you will die. There's just no civilization for hundreds of miles.
Oh,
in every
Eck, you paint
direction.
such a beautiful picture.
Well, I'm
You
telling
should
you, Las Vegas
just
is
at
this,
least throw up Badlands on the screen for people.
like Las Vegas is.
Or Wasteland. Either is acceptable. That's deserted temple.
that
That's
doesn't
not
work.
quite.
Well, it's just literal desert. I mean, the area surrounding Las Vegas does damage to attacking creatures.
And you will be attacking Vegas.
It's this little isolated, oasis just surrounded by nothing. Actual nothing.
All right.
With one road that goes into it.
I think if I let you go on for 5 more minutes, you're going to sound like some crazy grandma. So we'll move this conversation back to Moto, where we don't have to travel to play Magic. We just have to have... No, hands might be optional for Moto, too. Anyway, we've heard about Modern Masters Online, and
they have updated the release events and the tech.
Slashing prices everywhere!
Which I think is a
You
really
can draft now!
Which I think is a really great thing. The sticker shock that I had, especially like looking at when they announced that, like I know the set is it's a higher MSRP, the whole thing, but I was still like kind of, whoa, like yeah, that's a lot. Like 30 tickets without packs to draft this, like holy god.
I don't get it. Wizards, you set MSRP on Magic Online. Shit should cost MSRP.
It's not like
you're the manufacturer. You are suggesting the retail price.
Well, that's the thing. They were selling it. The draft format was retail, was MSRP.
Okay. Plus
9 tickets for like the fee, because the packs are presumably worth more as prize.
Okay.
So like $7 a pack. If you don't have packs, it's $21 plus the $9 fee. It's just. It's not like this set.
Then, how can the player base be surprised when this is the announcement they make?
It's not that the player base is surprised. It's just that you heard that phrase. I'm not mad. I'm just disappointed. Like the set isn't redeemable. The goal of this set is to put cards in the hands of players so that they can play the format. So, gouging players for extremely large prices for the sake of a secondary market that you don't care about nearly as much as you do. The secondary Magic Online market is worth, I think, to Wizards is far less important than the real card. No Magic Online bot is running a local gaming store with F&Ms, right?
Right.
Like, making sure that they get to stay in business through singles is not important to Magic. Or it should not be important to Wizards.
Well, I'm not really an economics scientist, so I'm not going to try to break down the Modern Masters' impact on MTGO, despite the fact that you can never redeem it. What I am going to say is very relevant to what we're interested in and what we like on MTGO a lot is cube drafting. And not only do we all want to play it because Modern Masters is the modern cube, no pun intended, but rather we finally found another outlet for cube tickets, which is maybe a long time coming, maybe obvious.
Yeah, you can use cube tickets in Phantom Modern Masters draft queues.
Right.
So, what to me begs the question, they should just be called Phantom tickets and be usable for every Phantom event they ever run.
Which kind of takes away a little bit of the luster of the cube type product.
Because they had the cube ticket was so lustrous already.
We've had this conversation on the podcast before. I still think, when I think cube ticket, I still think movie ticket. I think it takes a ticket to get into the cube.
Oh no!
I don't like where they might be dimes, they might be quarters.
Yeah.
They aren't tradable, so we're not going to add that new portion of denomination to the system. What I'm a little confused by, and what I am hopeful for, is that these cube tickets will find new life, and maybe that'll make more people want to draft cube online. Maybe it'll be like, hey, they don't sit in your collection for 3 month periods.
Right, there's
doing
less
anything.
downside to ending with like awkward numbers of them.
Yeah, it isn't about how easy or difficult is it going to be to get back to some denomination of 10.
Unless all the events just run for denominations of 10.
Yeah, well,
that might happen.
Anything could happen. Our hand is on the pulse. So overall, do you think this is good for MTGO cubing, MTGO limited? Do you think this is kind of a detractor from MTGO cube drafting?
I think that it certainly can't hurt. I don't think
It
that...
can hurt. I could come up with scenarios where it can hurt.
Well, I don't think anyone is, like, hoarding cube tickets and is like, oh, when it comes back, I'm ready. But now they have to use all their cube tickets to get Modern Masters Phantom events. Because, again...
You can't hoard them, they're not transferable.
Exactly, that's what I'm saying.
Okay.
Since they're not a tradable thing, and you can't effectively redeem them for cards through a draft, it's all Phantom events, it really is just, we have this form of currency to players, it's representative of whatever, and now you can use it on more things. And that's just a strict positive.
Okay.
I don't think of it as, oh, now people aren't going to cube as much because they're not going to have cube tickets.
It's possible.
If anything, now, getting cube tickets as a reward is less annoying because there are more things that you can use them for. In fact, potentially in the future, even more than just Modern Masters. Like I was saying, other Phantom events just use cube tickets the same way that the cube drafts do. Change it into a more generic thing rather than intrinsically call them cube tickets.
Right.
Change them to Phantom tickets.
Similar to new player ticket.
Right.
We have Phantom ticket.
We've already determined that they're willing to break the currency up into different forms that aren't...
You gotta be careful.
I mean...
U.S. government comes knocking if you start making penny tickets, nickel tickets, dime tickets, quarter tickets.
Well, right, but the fact that none of the tickets other than the proper ticket are not tradable.
Right, currently.
Yeah.
But if you start making Phantom... If you change cube ticket to Phantom ticket, and then you start turning Phantom ticket to tradable...
5B... yeah, 5Bs for a nickel.
Yeah.
Or whatever.
Yeah, things are
5Bs for a quarter.
Okay. Well, obviously, I'm pretty much for this. Although I'd still... Okay, so what I would love then, in my perfect world, take with the current incarnation of cube tickets, make them Phantom tickets, make Phantom events able to be entered with Phantom tickets. Then, rebrand cube ticket, make that actually be what it's supposed to be, use it to be able to get into a cube event.
You still want like a privatized cube?
Yeah, my idea from over a year ago at this point was to have the cube packs payout on MTGO. That was my whole idea was, make them a packs. Like, you enter the cube queue with cube packs, you get payout in cube packs, you can then trade amongst yourselves cube packs, and then go back into the queue with them.
I think they don't want packs that are representative of something that doesn't actually exist. Like, the effective, like, open the cube pack and just like a moth flies out and like a puff of smoke.
What could be in cube packs if you open them? What would be a way to offset that? You could do it like the old Avatar packs where you randomly get like a Sarah Avatar, a Morphling, or a Sliver Queen, and then like some Guru Lands.
It's just one random card from the cube list.
That would be awesome.
Yeah. Just, it could be anything.
One random card from the cube.
Anything.
Non-redeemable, special cube logo.
Right, it's like the cube set.
Yeah. Heck, you have had such great ideas. You gotta be submitting that resume, getting in there with marketing.
Right. Speaking of great ideas, there were a number of great and some not so great ideas on Twitter this week. For those of you who follow Aaron Forsyth, he was talking about...
And who doesn't? Seriously, if you're watching this show, you definitely follow Aaron Forsyth on Twitter.
So he was talking about there was a developers meeting off-site. They were sketching out the ideas for the next 7 years of Magic design. And he was asking from the community at hashtag MTG7 about what people wanted, what people liked to see, what they were looking for in the future of Magic, what they wanted the future of Magic to look like. So, in the next 7 years of Magic, what would you like to see?
Foil tokens. I would like to see a restructure of organized play to have more of kind of... I think I've talked about like the youth baseball model, which is a pretty big concept to talk about right here.
Uh-huh.
But like where like there's instructional league versus like intermediate league.
Okay.
Versus because like right now I think there's too big of a gaps between
F&M and GBs.
Exactly. And I think that there really needs to be that kind of like that middle ground Magic convention type feeling, because I think the community of players is kind of clamoring for it. And despite the fact that we live in a digital communication age where I feel like I'm more connected with more people who play Magic in general, we're not gathering to, no pun intended, to kind of, celebrate the game we love so much in a way that was done in the 90s that I was really excited as a kid to want to go to. But as Eck knows, those places used to just be filled with rapists. Disclaimer, not true.
Spoiler alert.
So I would love that for play. As far as cards go, I mean, we've gone to the final frontier on the back of the card. We've made the card turn over. We've made the card do things face down.
What, pop-up cards? Like,
you remember, like, Spellfire had, like, they're almost like scratch-off cards. Like, they had limited use.
Yeah.
We're not going to do that.
Chaos Confetti?
We don't want that. Yes.
Blacker Lotus?
Yes. The two lowest
R2-D2,
rated...
like, Help Me Obi-Wan, You're My Only Hope, little, like, 3D hologram cards.
So, as far as card development and card design goes, my wishes would be, come back to resonance and simplicity. I think that M10 really scored this to help boost the player community. In reality, it was Duels of the Planeswalkers. But the things I love about Magic are the might and magic, the sword and sorcery, all that, Tolkien-esque universe things that really drew me in as a kid.
So you're not as big a fan of, like, Mirrodin?
Mirrodin's all right. And, talking with Mark Rosewater, you can only do so many Innistrad. You can only do, for every one Innistrad, you have to do 5 or 6 Mirrodins. Because you can create that universe, you can create that lore.
Yeah.
You can't recreate American Werewolf in London. You can only do it once. But then,
So what are your feelings then on Theros block being like Roman, like Greek Roman gods kind of?
Well, that has resonance. And resonance in a positive way, and it's all how you use it and how you spin it. We all know what a ninja is. Does that mean we want it in our Magic cards?
Well, that was just a poorly designed set, which is part of it.
But again, they're not making the same mistakes that they made before. I mean, on Mark Rosewater's podcast, Drive to Work, which I definitely think you should all listen to. I think it's spectacular if you just like Magic to really have a better understanding of how it works, and it'll definitely make you a better player. But the way old kind of blocks played out and sets played out was you came up with a thing, and then you just did that thing times 2, maybe times 3.
It was like the thing, and then it was usually like the thing, the slight twist on the thing, and then either like the full blown insane go huge thing, or the like complete like flip it,
Sure.
like, thematically wise.
And now sets and blocks play out very differently. Almost to where expectations for Magic players have changed dramatically, and if you could make a new twist on that, I'd be very interested. But you have a formula that really works now.
Right. It's hard to turn down printing money, in a very literal sense.
But I think that at this point, Magic's coming up on 20 years old. We have seen so many card games, or at least I have, that have just failed, and they've fallen into all these amazing pitfalls. The Magic continues to either dodge, jump over, or barrel through. And I'm thankful that this product is in the right people's hands, and I think they know what they're doing.
I miss some of those card games, not all of them. Some RIP, others good riddance.
I think my brother still has a very decent-sized collection of Overpower cards. We should bust out one of these days and play that.
What happened to all of our Marvel vs. cards? I'd look at that game.
Those turned into vintage stuff at one point. We played vintage for a long time.
Right.
And then some of that stuff turned into poker tables and poker chips.
That's a good point.
Yeah, I definitely remember trading 3 workshops for three professional-grade poker tables.
Fair. It was interesting. I was, kind of following along on Twitter, seeing the different suggestions people have in the conversations, Mark Rosewater, or, Aaron Forsyth have with people about the MTG7 concept. And one of my favorite comments was, it was Aaron Forsyth and some guy. It was just like a random, I didn't recognize the name or whatever. And he was talking about he wanted some flavor, he wanted some, there were a lot of requests on Twitter for like, I like whatever, bring back zombies and more, make a zombie block, or make a thing like I like this art style, do more of that. And then in the middle of this conversation, Paulo PV jumped in and said like, I don't get you guys. You have the literal ear of the head designers of Magic, and all you can come up with is make Scarecrow tribal a thing again. What the hell?
Oh, man.
So, it was kind of interesting.
I love Apollo on Twitter is so great.
It's true.
Because you always understand what he's saying. I think that really goes
Right.
a long way. It's not like when he says something and you're like, did he mean to say that? It's more like, yes, this is actually going on. So, yeah, I think that come back to those resonance blocks. I think those are the things that would make me the happiest as a Magic player. Don't go too far off the deep end with block ideas.
So the things that I mean, threw my proverbial hat in the Twitter ring, the things I wanted were more integration. So not only integration, but also resources and funding develop more towards MTGO to make that product at the level of quality.
That was a major complaint there for you. And
I've had that feeling for a long time.
I guess that just feels like throwing an ice cube into a volcano.
Well, right, but it's like if someone who has the ability to enact change on this is going to ask me what I want, I'm going to tell them what I want, and what I want is Moto to be better.
We all do.
But it's like, I'll give you a perfect example of what I'm talking about in terms of where focus and integration, things like that. Magic Online still tracks a DCI rating, like an ELO rating.
But that's going to die with the next update, isn't it?
I don't know.
Have you logged on to version 3 or version beta wide, whatever?
I did for a little while, and I felt that they made trading better and game.
But did you look at your player profile?
I didn't look at my player profile.
I don't think it's on there anymore.
But I mean, the fact that it's lasted this long is kind of an indicator to me of okay, you guys have this awesome platform and this awesome program in Magic Online. You have taken what is an immensely complicated, game with a fervent fan base in real life, and you've converted it completely successfully to the digital platform, and you've done so with a lot of twine and chewing gum solutions to problems and things that
different companies working on it from time to time. Well, don't you remember launching 2.5 and that sweet Flash video that would play?
Yeah, Leaping Lizards used to run it, and then they fired everyone in Leaping Lizards, and then they didn't have anyone left who knew how to run the servers.
Okay.
And that caused some problems for a while. So it's just why would you not? If you're Wizards, you have this amazing platform that people are dying, already using and loving and want to give you more money for. Why not have it integrated even further than it already is and supported better than it already is? We've seen it already with things like PTQs and the new GPs and things like that. GPTs, rather, excuse me. But, the fact that PTQ crashed their servers, a week ago, things like that, that's largely inexcusable to me.
I'd like to think that is very high priority.
I would hope
I'd like to think so. I don't... In the same breath, it feels like you're why is there a DCI rating on there? And also, your PTQ crashed.
But, I mean, it's just... They have this platform that is so profitable and so successful for them, and to see them not support it in the way that I think they should, or to the fullest, is something that's frustrating for me as a player. Because, especially for someone like me, Magic Online is a great platform because I don't always have the time, I don't always have the availability to go to an event, go spend a day doing something, whatever. If I have the flexibility to play European time, PTQs, things like that, that works around my schedule a lot better. But, in my personal experience, that didn't end well for me. I top 8'd the first Moto PTQ, and then my client refused to connect me to their server for 40 minutes.
But you still sign on and play Magic Online.
Right, but I don't really give them much of my money. And if it was a better content platform and better supported, I would.
All right. I think it's coming. With a lot of the kind of the concerns and complaints that players have today, I have faith. I mean, look at what the things they have done with things like organized play. Think of what they have done with the products they put out there in the last few years. Giant strides have been made, and they're doing an excellent job of reaching that larger audience they have now.
That's certainly true.
I think your concerns are very legitimate. They're worth putting out there. But we're not talking about 2006, 2007. We're not talking about the changeover to version 3.
We're not talking about the actual kill your computer in 4 hours memory leak.
Oh, those were good times.
Yeah.
Oh man, back in the day, I can remember so many.
You would have to literally restart your computer.
Yeah.
You could not get through a draft.
I'm sorry. Before the days of bots, I would just leave my computer on 24/7 with multiple MTGO clients open for trading.
Yeah.
And other than the very aggressive sound of someone wants to trade with you ringing through my apartment, there was a lot of computer restarting all the time.
All the time. So, I mean, I just think that that's a huge thing. You know, I have no doubt in my mind that, you know, when it comes to flavor or card design or thematics or things like that, you know, they're going to make some interesting, you know, steps here, there, some missteps, but I think that that's not really... I think it's always going to be good, or it's at the very least always going to be interesting.
Okay.
I just, you know...
You have no fear of the next Kamigawa?
No.
Okay.
Because I mean, I'm biased because I like that limited format. So I got something out of that set.
Okay.
And I would just love to see, you know, they're, you know, making Hand Over Fist so much, you know, it's such a profitable, such a successful game, to see it supported at the level it could be. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So, I mean,
there's my MTGO rant.
I like a lot of duality here because you're very concerned about the digital platform. I'm very concerned about the cardboard platform. I mean, I still see the 10-year-olds walk into the storefronts, and I want the one with the dragon in it. I'll buy Dragon's Maze. Well, actually, son, there are no dragons in that one.
Yeah.
Oh. I don't know what I want. It's okay. Magic's a great game.
You can turn other cards into dragons.
Yeah. Technicality, as far as I'm concerned. We'll stop questioning the motives of MTGO, and we'll move on to something that's, you know, again, still Cube related here. MTGO what? Anniversary.
Anniversary.
Not MTGO University. Yeah, that's the sequel to MTGO Incorporated, where they have a bunch of... I was trying to make a Monsters, Inc. joke, but it just never... Flat.
Yeah. Well, flat in its face.
Into the ground, burn it down. So, the MTGO 11th anniversary brings us a fun, limited format, similar to the Festival of Old...
Right. Like the... What was it? The...
Festival of Old... Something Sealed. I don't remember what the L stood for in Fools.
Limited. It was Festival of Old Limited.
Festival of Old Limited Sealed, yes.
Yeah. So, if you haven't heard... in not this weekend but next weekend, so the weekend starts on the 19th, so 8 days from now. They're celebrating the 11th anniversary of Magic Online, and the event that they're running. So they have a community standard duel the devs or whatever, duel the developers.
Yeah. Now they've got a thing actually on Twitch TV where you can interact with the development team as they battle in this one day. And then, I can remember. MTGO Anniversary 1, where they brought on pros to play on MTGO, and you could battle them in the casual room.
Remember when the Invitational? That was sweet.
Yeah. Auction of the People was awesome. You could watch that stuff going on.
Matches. Anyway, so the event is 6 event tickets for a Phantom Sealed event, where you get 1 pack of every big set fall release since Moto has been outlined.
11!
So you start with Onslaught, and move forward from there. The 1 of each... and you play sealed deck with it. It's a 4-round event. It looks like a lot of fun, and also something that, not to feel extra special, but Cube players should be excellent at.
Just anyone who's played a hodgepodge limited environment before. Do you remember Crap Draft?
Oh, I love me some Crap Draft.
Here's a freebie for all you local store owners out there. That the kids will run wild with this one. You get one of those card dispensers, similar like bubblegum card dispensers or sticker dispensers for your store top. Fill it with Magic cards.
Mostly crap.
Right, well, we call it Crap Draft. Randoming it will help you a lot. Because we played with some Crap Drafts where there was a dozen hollowed dogs within 6 players or something.
Yeah.
It was the battle of the 5-3 attackers. But so the old, the stand-up dispenser we played with was you put in a quarter, you got 4 cards. 5 cards, somewhere between 3 and 5 cards. It was not always.
Well, I remember $1 would get you 1 pack.
Mm-hmm.
So everyone would put $3 in and get their 3 booster packs, and then we would draft with this pile of terrible cards.
Right.
And then whoever could make the closest thing to an actual deck out of this total nothing but chaff, and then every 250 cards you put 1 rare. Or I remember
no. So
there were stars on the cards, and it would redeem for a booster pack.
So the concept behind the the card vending machine, the sticker box in the store itself was you could put in a quarter, you could get a basic label with a stamp on it, you could turn it into a booster pack. So when 6 guys all dropped a laundry's worth of quarters into the machine, we'd get a few packs,
and that would be like the prize for
exactly whoever won. Like if we 6-man it, and this would usually take place before Friday Night Magic. Whoever won the draft,
you like team draft for like the 3 booster packs.
Yeah, and you get a booster pack. I mean, really, like you're not getting a whole lot of value.
No, it's just like a time killer.
Yeah, we would do it, and we would show up at the store we play Friday Night Magic at between 2 or 3 in the afternoon. FNM doesn't start till 6:37. As people would come in, we were trading, we'd be hanging out, we'd be playing. This would be something we would do.
So I mean, this is, I have a feeling, is going to mimic that to some degree. You're going to get a lot of, I can't wait to open my Champions of Kamigawa pack and have my one splice onto arcane spell and my no other arcane spells, and then
I'm gonna have 3 morph creatures to play from. Who knows how many I'll play?
Right, there's gonna be you open.
Man, if you're playing,
you're gonna open Astral Slide and hope to God you get cyclers in Alara.
Oh yeah, I was thinking, does Time Spiral have any cyclers? It's got to.
Yeah.
Yeah, all right. So you have a few shots.
I mean, but
if you're playing the drinking game at home, the Eck drinking game, you're probably already blacked out tonight. Just FYI. Thanks for playing.
Nice. So, yeah, I mean, having one of the nice things that Cube does is because it's obviously a lot of times you end up with very disparate card strategies and things are weird outliers and stuff like that. You're going to get to see a lot of that in a 11-year-long sealed format.
It sounds like a ton of fun. I was definitely a little confused by the Fools concept, and I didn't really take it as being real for the first 24 hours I'd heard about it last time. So
one of the nice things they did is they lowered the price.
And they also increased the deck building time.
They increased the deck building time. They learned from the April Fool's joke and made this more of like a proper. It's only 6 tickets. I think if you 3-1, you get 2 draft sets, and if you 4-0, you get 4 draft sets or something.
Which is spectacular and so much fun.
It's good value. It'll be a ton of fun.
Yeah, I expect to play many of these events. I think they're going to be hilarious and amazing.
At the very least, the look of what have I done to myself on the open is going to be great. What are my rares? Oh God!
While I lead into our next topic, Ak, you want to find out exactly, so we can tell the viewers at home exactly.
Those queues go up after the downtime on Wednesday the 19th.
He doesn't even need to look it up, ladies and gentlemen.
I looked it up.
That is very soon. That is very soon.
So 8 days from now,
as we are broadcasting live here on Tuesday evening.
Yeah.
So it's only taken us an hour into the show to get to would be our quote-unquote main topic. But the nice thing about a 2-hour live video cast / podcast for all of you long-distance commuters is we can do that. We can talk about things that are mildly Cube-related in the community, and we can get you nice and drunk by playing the casual Magic Box drinking game. But we can also talk about Cube philosophy, Cube interactions, Cube drafting. So tonight, we bring you the color red.
I think
Fury, passion.
I think your drinking game should be every time your voice spikes the
every time I'm too loud and I redline?
Well, you start quiet and then go really loud all of a sudden, and you go above the.
I got to make sure people are still paying attention. I can't imagine that people that listen or view this show in some capacity do not fall asleep. It's just 2 guys talking. I don't know how.
I don't know how anybody does it.
Okay, so we kind of farted around with Green last week. We did a mediocre job. I think we can hash out a little bit better. That's why. Today, hopefully, we have some notes. We'll start with I guess we can start real big and go the color philosophy of red. You've got impulse, rage, just like
the
actual color philosophy.
Oh, okay, yeah, angry people and fire.
Yeah, so it's not the most precise. It's not. It's hard to make an art form of red. It feels like.
Yeah, I mean, I think that. I mean, Red's whole thing is that it's not an art form, though. It's like primal. It's
chaotic.
It's chaotic.
Yeah.
It doesn't fall into a preconceived form.
I will say that in Crap Cube, which we have built before, which is supposedly like the 400 or so, some of the worst Magic cards ever, but you have to kind of put a limit on yourself.
Red is stellar.
It's not so much stellar as much as it has the biggest swing cards.
Yeah.
I mean, have you ever played with Risky Move?
Oh, yeah.
That card is insano.
Staring Flesh, first pick all day.
Oh yeah, that guy, Ember Shot. Ember Shot was a huge card in that format.
It draws a card?
Oh my god. Lightning Bolt for any amount of mana would be huge in Crap Draft. And Crap Cube, sorry.
So, historically speaking, especially in Cube, Red has kind of been in an awkward place because it's never been the best color, but it's also never been the worst color either.
No.
So it doesn't really get the attention. You know, we talked a lot about green and how green started out in the earlier days of Cube and how it was the worst color, and it got a lot of attention and a lot of focus because people were really like, how do we make green good? How do we balance the Cube colors? How do we make it? And now it's black, right? Black is kind of, which we'll talk about in a future episode.
Yeah, there's always kind of like the one fault, like, you know, if you want to go with the George Bush No Child Left Behind of Cube, there's always one guy that's kind of straggling that requires most of the teacher's attention.
So Red has always been kind of smack dab in the middle. It's obvious, it's no blue, but it's never been a black or a green, historically speaking. So it hasn't got necessarily the same level of attention or focus, I think, that had it been worse or arguably better.
And who would have thought this would be such a beautiful metaphor for the American education system? But maybe, just because it's been skirting through the middle so long, it might actually have bigger problems than we really thought of in the past.
So, in the long ago, in the earlier days of Cube, Red was very all over the place.
And that was one of the reasons that when I kind of built my own cube, that land destruction was so much of a thing. That I kind of like, I felt like there was a lot of extra spots in the color red that I felt we could fill in with more Stone Rains.
I think the biggest issue with red is that if you look at what every color does on terms of what its slice of the color pie is, if you want to talk abilities or mechanics or, you know, how cards function, if you take the color pie and cut out, if we're talking strictly for Cube, we cut out the things that Cube players or Cubes do not want, right? And then see how everyone stacks up. Red's slice of the color pie is the smallest. Because a lot of what Red does is not necessarily things that you want in a cube, but you do not necessarily want coin flipping, random mini games, trading permanents all over the place.
A lot of fair cards.
Well, a lot of fair cards or a lot of random cards.
Right.
And Cube wants neither.
Right. It wants more Wheel of Fortunes, despite the fact that that's not really where Red gets a big boost anyway.
Sure. There are also very few cards in Red at the appropriate power level, which I guess is an asterisk to put to any statement when we're talking about Cube, that cheat that color pie distribution.
Yeah.
So last week we talked about green. So even though green is the creature color and the ramp color and the guys, it still gets Beast Within to destroy any permanent, as well as Harmonize to draw 3 cards for 4 mana. Red doesn't really get... There are very few things, other than, say Wheel of Fortune, which again is a symmetrical, quote-unquote, symmetrical card. There's not a lot, outside of the realm of what Red normally does. There are very few outlier cards that are cube-worthy.
A great barometer of that is look at Planar Chaos's impact on Magic and Cube in general. I mean, we play a few Planar Chaos cards, but they're just not... They're not as cross-impactful as the other colors can be. So, again, back in the day, Red was good at burning things, and it really kind of felt like, well, that's what Red did. So when you first built Cube, it was like, well, we'll put in the good X spells, we'll put in the good burn spells. To
interject briefly, a question in chat, why is there no Browbeat? One of the other things Red does a lot of, which is not good for Cube or anywhere else, is to give your opponent choices for things.
Yeah, the Punisher mechanic, although very popular and designed for Red a while back, is just not strong enough.
Yeah.
I mean, I think we joked about putting in Book Burning because it's such a confusing card.
Yeah. I mean, the only time giving your opponent a choice is a good idea is when they have no idea what's going on.
And both are wrong.
Yeah. It's a rare,
Instant threshold? That might be good. Take 6 damage for 2 mana? That might be good. Your opponent has no idea.
Right. You just, yeah.
It's very easy for your opponent to in theory, it's very easy for your opponent to look at the situation of take 5 damage, let opponent draw 3 cards, and know which one is better for them to choose. And thusly, the Punisher mechanic has although kind of cheats the color pie, just does not do enough for it. There's no molten influence happening. There's not a breaking point in our cube. Well, the breaking point is decent, but that's mostly because you're dealing enough damage already that 6 should be a lot in exchange for your threats.
So red, because of all this, red has been kind of, for a long time, it was very muddled. You had aggressive guy, you had your goblin guys and your jackal pups.
You had a lot of goblin guys and jackal pups. I think that,
and then you had some guys in the middle that did some other stuff, and then you had some LD guys like avalanche riders kind of stuck in there, and then you had some dragons and some bigger guys, and then its spells were just kind of some burn spells, and then a bunch of LD, and it didn't really have enough to justify one identity, let alone several, which is what the other colors have.
Right. Ideally, you want each color to be able to have distinct archetypes, distinct strategies, distinct interactions with other colors. And, the thing about red is that you could kind of walk up to most Magic players at this point. If you said, hey, how do you draft cube? How do you draft red? They're all going to have an answer for you, and it's all going to be a right answer. It's all going to be the same answer. It's aggro red, mono red,
snap goblin guy, go from there.
Yeah, you know how to do it.
Red is very insular. Because of red wants what it wants, and in terms of design and the way the cards function, which I guess is also a play on red's philosophies. It doesn't play well with others.
Yeah, I mean,
you really. The best mono-colored deck in Cube, I think, is mono-red. Crazy Ancestral Recall Time Walk decks aside.
Mono blue isn't even as good as mono red.
No.
The best mono blue deck still loses to the best mono red deck.
Okay, I'm being that guy. So having it becomes an interesting problem because it's very easy to say, well, red wants to be mono red. That's all I'm going to do is make it mono red. And have no cards that are interesting or that other colors want, or no incentive to play outside of that very narrow shell you put up.
Sounds like we're talking about black, but we are talking about red.
Yeah, I mean, black has it through its mana costs. Red has it through its curve and what it's looking to do. Red is the most aggressive color by far. No color even comes close. White is a distant second, and On the flip side, the slower side of red, is looking to get there, to get to the long game on the back of removal, at which red has plenty of removal and sweepers.
Yeah.
It doesn't necessarily need to go into other colors to solve its immediate problems.
So pushing, we're already barreling towards what the present of red was, but moving from the ancient cube past of red, the 06, the 07s of we'll just play all the burn spells. I mean, the chat already kind of mentions red could beat us 23 lava spikes. Well, in a lot of ways, it was really 10 volcanic hammers and 6 fireballs, and then some other 7 stone rains or something. But moving forward with red, I think that since it kind of floated through the middle for everybody, it just kind of became all of those things 10 times over, and it had no real flavor. It had no depth. It had nowhere to go, it felt like. And I know that this is something that a lot of cube builders and editors and theory crafters have kind of come up against in the last year or two with cube, where it's can red even do anything else? Or is it just mono red, aggro mono red, and then other colors just take the burn spells, and then maybe there's a red-green beats, and maybe there's a white-red Boros deck. Is that all it really does?
Right. So I think that, anytime you're crafting, a limited, environment, you're looking at a limited number of cards, you don't have an infinite amount of room, you're working under constraints, you have to make, sometimes difficult decisions or, kind of make strong rules for yourself about what you're going to do and how. So in red, kind of the structure of that is especially if you look at the creatures, Red's creatures are either as aggressive as possible or as big for like the slower red control decks, and there's very little in the middle. Compare that to a color like green. Green has a lot of power 4-drops and 5-drops, things that can go either into more aggressive decks or bigger ramp decks,
More versatility.
Right. Red is looking at either being as aggressive as possible or living through Wildfire.
On its own, we're talking about just the color red by itself here, right?
Yes.
Obviously, when you start to mix in other colors, things change a lot. But we didn't want red to just be 1 to 3 drops, utility impactful 4 drops, and burn spells. We really wanted there to, in this day and age in Cube, have there be multiple real strategies, multiple real angles of attack for red to have just as a color by itself. Obviously, real quickly you're going to be pairing it up with other combinations, doing other things, but I think that we've done a fairly good job of making big red a draftable strategy, and that's kind of what I feel like is the new school of thought, and that includes your Jockle Hops, your Devastation, and your Wildfires. I mean, you could go as far as like Obliterate and Destructive Force. We haven't gone that far. Obliterate's been in the cube for like 5 minutes before, and it was just a bit excessive. I think that the big red decks function very well without having to go all the way to 8 for those pieces. So that's the other side of the coin right now. You've got aggressive red. You don't ever need to change that. You've got burn you out red. You've got sulfuric vortex red.
No matter what size your cube is, you could very easily make your red section nothing but Jackalops, basically.
There are enough Goblin Patrol, Goblin Cadet variations that you could have no creature in your red section cost more than 4 mana. Mm-hmm. Maybe with a Zealous Conscripts or a Thunderwhite Hellkite or something. But you could do that. But again, I really feel like you're limiting yourself, and you're really limiting how the players that come up to your cube have the capacity to draft things.
So, yeah. And I think the big red deck is something that we've kind of had as one of the pet projects for a long time. In this
that's where the whole Tefferderm Goblin Goon test pilot scenario came from.
So, having, and every cube builder, every cube owner is going to have their pet project, their pet cards, whatever. For a long time for us, it's Wildfire, and I think that it's really given red more depth because now you can have 2 red drafters at a table, and they're not even necessarily fighting over the same cards.
There's very little overlap.
Yeah.
I mean, we all want Incinerate, we all want Lightning Bolt, but it's like, well, I don't want 4 mana Chandra, and I don't want Spike Shot Elder or Magus of the Scroll.
Exactly.
And those people can go about their own draft. It's not like, oh, I happen to be sitting directly to the left of the guy who was drafting the color red. I kind of had to do something else, or I have a bastardized version of the deck he was trying to build.
Right. So, how do you support Wildfire? Where does you start? So obviously the title cards, Wildfire in its East Asian brother-in-law, Burning of Zinyi, is the starting point. I think you also want, at a minimum, one other big red ability like that. A lot of people played Destructive Force.
We had for a while. I think that the 1 extra damage is not very helpful, and the 1 extra mana is a big liability.
I agree.
You're already killing a lot of your opponent's stuff already, and you'd really like your guys with 5 toughness to live.
Jockle Hops is one that we're running, as well as Devastation, and obviously these are slightly different because they're full-blown sweepers as opposed to just, hitting the smaller guys.
Well, it's funny because I think Devastation is so much better than the hops, but it plays differently because that extra mana matters so much. Mm-hmm. Like they're almost kind of crafted perfectly for cube.
Yeah.
Because if Devastation costs 6 and hops cost 7, hops would not be in.
No.
But Devastation would be very, very strong. I mean, I already look at Jockle Hops as being like the red upheaval. Like you really just want to like float 1 or 2 or have a Planeswalker in play.
So another thing that's important is that in all of these cards, one of the things they play best with is Planeswalkers. The red control deck, as it exists, really, really, really wants its Planeswalkers.
And I think that was really relevant and reticent to us when we added Joggle Hops and Devastation, that we added 4-mana Chandra.
Yeah.
It wasn't about like, oh, we have so many more spells to fork.
It was a package deal of having another red planeswalker that was decent and not.
You don't need to go out of your color. Yeah, you don't need to go out of your color to find something impactful with that strategy.
Yeah.
You just have the incremental advantage of Chandra the Firebrand, and thusly like you kind of get to reevaluate planeswalkers and cards when you're drafting the strategy.
Sure. Another card we also have that gets a little bit of overlap is Form of the Dragon, as a fun one to hops to leave behind from the Joggle Hops.
I have done that not many times, but I have definitely played games where I cast 7-mana red moat, knew that I could be in trouble, and was like, okay, well, blow up all your lands as well as the rest of your stuff, and now it's like 5U, 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 good game.
Yeah. So, another important part is it's important to strike a balance, because as we talked about, red is either intensely aggressive or really wants to go big, and there's not a lot of overlap of that, especially in the creatures. So you have to have, in order to support the Wildfire big red decks, you have to have an appropriate number of guys that you can curve into that will survive Wildfire. So things that you want to look for are 5-drops and earlier in red that will live through Wildfire or Burning of Zinyi. They're hard to come by, let me tell you. We've done a lot of hunting. Obviously, Thundermaw Hellkite, who knew? They're just past him. It drops off very quickly in terms of quality. One that I really like that working in those decks is Covetous Dragon. As a guy, he's got 5 toughness, he lives through the Wildfires, and these are also the decks that really want the artifact mana. So it's this great built-in synergy of cards that work well together.
I mean, come on, he's clearly the red Thragtusk.
Oh yeah.
The chat has mentioned Halimar Watchkeep being very similar.
Halimar Watchkeep.
Halimar Depths. Halimar Watchkeep. We've touched on this card before, where unless you're doing that very specific thing and you're doing it right on time, Watchkeep is a very hard card to make work. It's really counterintuitive for what the aggro red decks want to be doing, so it's hard to say like, oh, he's a 3-mana 5/5.
Yeah.
He does live through Wildfire, so he's not the worst. But I don't see a world in which we're going to be making room for that card. But it is good to point out, you have definitely found a 5 toughness guy that costs less than 6 mana.
So having guys that live through it is really important. But you have to be aware that those are not going to be guys that the mono-red aggressive decks want, and you have to be cognizant of keeping that balance, because anything that you add for the big red deck is going to, by default, make the aggressive red deck worse, since you're effectively diluting its card pool, and vice versa. And it's very easy, without really thinking about it, to go too far in one direction or the other.
I don't think it's that hard to go too far on big red. There just aren't that many options.
No, but it's certainly, there are about, we're currently on Hellkite Charger and Crater Inferno Titan. There are a lot of dragons of varying shapes and forms.
Have 6 mana. But they all do different things, which is the point.
Yeah, but it's very easy to go, well, dragons are good, more dragons.
Right, like we don't run Rorix for that reason.
Right. So it's very easy to get into the point where you have just too many dragons.
We recently cut Begarden Hellkite.
Right. Begarden Hellkite is one. So and likewise, you can't support the Wildfire deck if you've only got 2 guys in your entire red section that live through it. You have to have that balance. And it kind of forces you to make some awkward decisions, which is why we have a guy like Tephroderm in the cube. Not the best, man. A bit of a non-bow with the Wildfire, but you got to do what you got to do sometimes.
We want stuff that costs under 6, and I understand the chat saying I like Rorix, I like Begarden Hellkite. They're all fine cards, but we don't want to end up in a scenario where all of the post-Wildfire plays are after you hopefully have resolved Wildfire on your curve, right, because you can't rely on that enough.
Yeah, when you have to turbo Wildfire, and
which are more games than you'd want.
Yeah, So now you're looking at your 7 and 8 drop guys
Not to mention, like, turn 8 or 9 wildfire against a lot of opponents. Like,
not good enough.
Not impacting them as much. Maybe you got, like, 4 lands where you don't need them anymore.
The ideal situation, and really what wildfire wants to be, is ramp something wildfire turn 5. Ideally. Because if you go much longer than that, it's just not going to be good enough. So it's important that you have guys that are 6 or under, that will live through your wildfire. 5 or 4, especially if you can find them. They're hard, and different starts for different folks. Different cards are going to work in different cube environments, things like that. I like kind of where our grouping is right now in terms of what our list looks like.
I think we've worked really hard to make sure that there's enough at both ends, and that kind of brings us to a good point where it's like, okay, you've got aggro red, we get it. You've got big red in the various Jockle Hops or Wildfire forms, I get it. Are there any other draft strategies for red?
There are a few fringe cards for red.
So similar to green, we talked about last week, where there's kind of some build around me elements. Red also has kind of build around me elements. I mean, the most obvious being like Sulfuric Vortex, Shrine of Burning Rage. I think those are the one, or maybe even Goblin Guide. Like if you open those cards in your first pack, those are your first
build
picks.
Around them.
Like those are kind of the areas you want to go to.
I still say Goblin Guide, best, not close, best mono red card. Most
for the deck mono red or the best red card.
The best mono red, aggressive mono red beatdown card.
Okay.
So in terms of red build around me's,
I have tried Gamble.
Gamble did not work out very well.
It's okay. Like I could definitely see a world where we bring it back. If like we had more dredge type cards, if we had more graveyard interactions, like we already have a decent number of graveyard interactions.
Grid Madness.
I guess.
A little bit of madness. I mean, like
if Gamble was an instant.
Bullshit. Yeah. But I mean, fire...
only Gamble in hand. Go get Circular Logic.
Fiery Temper was in for a while.
Yeah, Fire Temper could come back.
Basking Rootwalla was in for a long time.
Yeah, it could come back. We've got Bizarre Baghdad.
It's true.
Things could happen.
So one of the red build-arounds that we talked about earlier was Form of the Dragon.
Form is one of those cards where you've got to be really bold to like first pick Form of the Dragon.
That is not for the faint of heart for sure. A similar, another card to build around is Sneak Attack in red, usually slotted in to kind of pair up with the Reanimator deck to kind of double dip.
I definitely think that Sneak Attack is, I don't know, it might be like the most wrong red card ever printed.
Right? I mean, like, that ability is very red. You're effectively
Give
just
your guy
throwing dudes and then they blow up.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's just no.
Interesting side note. Rosewater worked on Saga design. They had issues with the templating and the cards, and they had to make up a card for this artwork. And that's how Sneak Attack was born.
Huh.
Yeah. He got art, was turned in, it was finalized.
They were trying
to fill in the set. And he had to come up with a card for that artwork.
I've said it before, and I'll say it again. The most broken Magic cards always come from last-minute design.
Right.
Every time.
If Magic will teach you anything, kids, is that stay in school because
don't procrastinate.
Yeah.
Anything you do in the last 2 minutes is always going to come back and bite your
It creates GTAs, creates Skull Clamps, creates Sneak Attacks, creates all of versus Saga.
The whole block. That whole block is written in 10 minutes.
So there aren't as many. I mean, I consider cards like Wildfire to be kind of that build around me kind of card, but I don't think you need to draft them as highly as you need to draft other build around me cards of other colors. I think that if you can evaluate 2-mana artifact acceleration like we have in earlier scenarios, those are the things that are going to lead you to excellent Wildfire decks. And when you see those Wildfires 3 through 7 in the picks, you can be like, oh, I have the cards that can survive this. I have the resources to power this out and get through this. Bam, this is a strategy I want to go into.
Yeah, and I think that, as much as the aggressive mono red deck doesn't want to play with other colors, the big red deck does. And part of that, it's less about filling the problems with the deck or things like that. filling the holes in terms of what's available in red. It's more about it's a deck that so emphasizes artifact acceleration, like we were talking about, that you might as well like the second color very quickly becomes free.
Or green.
Free or green. Freeing. So,
it could become free because you are taking the Fel War Stones, the Prismatic Lenses, the Cold Steel Hearts,
the Dark Steel Ingots, the Coalition
Relics. Yeah, all of these cards are things you're going to value very highly. So it's like, well, now your deck has a lot of resiliency because you can play that Swords of Plowshares, you could play that Thirst for Knowledge, you could play that Mind Twist that you see in Pack 3. Those are all things you have access to that you can play. Now, the chat actually pointed this out, which is a good segue into kind of filling out the Wildfire or the Big Red strategies. Norbert has mentioned Pyroclasm. A little too small. I love Slagstorm, and playing with Slagstorm more and more over the years has made me wish I could just put 4 Slagstorms in the cube.
Slagstorm definitely is also one of those cards where it doesn't look like it at first, but it works in both the common red strategies. It's not the best in the mono red aggressive deck, but you can certainly play it there, and it's not going to be terrible.
It's similar to like Volcanic Fallout in the MTGO cube.
Yes,
it's like uncounter. It's like it's almost like sudden shock to finish your opponent, or like a sweeper against the white or green decks early in the game. So we just recently added Fire Spout to that end. I think that the ability to pay under 4 mana for 3 damage to multiple guys is really key for these strategies that plan to live long enough to cast cards like Jocklehops.
Yeah.
We might double up on the Arc Lightnings in the cube as well in the future to kind of bring in more of that situation.
We're currently on just Flames of the Firebrand.
And that's just because I like the artwork. I mean, I'm like 99...
We used to be on Arc Lightning.
99 times out of 100, I'm an original card kind of guy, but that and like the foil artwork looks so cool that I was like, we'll throw that guy a bone. Is there any aspect of like Big Red we haven't covered?
I don't think. I mean,
we also got the corner case cards here. Like, I think Form of the Dragon can be a deck without Academy Rector, and I think that's one of the reasons it still lives in Cube. Obviously, you're going to want to play Trixie, you're going to want to play Rector and have these kind of tricks, but I also think that Red Moat also has range and reach that you're not going to have from a lot of other red cards. Seismic Assault, again, we've talked about Seismic Assault a lot on the cubes. I think we're one of the on the cast was one of the few cubes that run it, and I think that
I like it in the red aggressive deck.
Right, which is what we want because it's kind of a combo card, but it should also be able to play well in the aggressive decks.
So the 2 more questions from the chat, guys like Goblin Settlers and Ravenous Baboons. So guys like that kind of.
What about them? What's the question?
How often do they see play? How are they any good? So, in the most recent update to the cube, a lot of land destruction got cut, especially a lot of the mediocre land destruction. A lot of the guys that survived are the land destruction dudes. Goblin Settler, Goblin Ruin Blaster, Avalanche Riders, etc.
And my answer to that is mostly because red doesn't have a whole lot of mid-range.
Right. Like red, your mid-range is effectively land destruction in red.
Or Flametongue Kavu, or...
Another important thing is that those creatures are some of Red's best cards that play for other colors to play with, in the sense that the land destruction is always very good in like a more green rampy environment, being able to cast it faster, or playing in the other colors with things like, Momentary Blink, or Revel Arc, or, being able to bounce your own guys and replay them, or, get them back out of your graveyard. Being able to kind of recur that enter the battlefield effect is very good. It's not something you really get in red directly, but the other colors do better. And those are the guys that really kind of from red that those decks want.
I just think that over the years there have just been like 4 casting costs for red is this really strange kind of hole in Magic. I mean, you have cubes that run like Lavaborn Muse. That kind of like tells you the quality of the kind of stuff you have there. And
4 is the best spot for red aggressive decks
because it has like 3 or 4 hugely impactful cards, but there's not a lot of depth.
It's got Hellrider, it's got Hero of Oxid Ridge. I mean, it's even got stuff like the big hit, like Firecat, or, for the big instant hit, Kelvin Champion, kind of a similar thing.
Yeah, you've named like all of the cards.
I think
Kenny has now named all of them too.
Yeah.
But I'm just saying, like, there's
The
not
thing
there's
is-
not a mid-range strategy for
No,
red.
there's
so
not.
those versatile creatures come into play a lot. So
And
not
the aggressive deck really only wants like 1 to maybe 2 of the 4-drops.
there's so you want that kind of like I step 2 steps forward, 1 step back kind of situations. Like I think that in the big red decks, cards like Goblin Settler play a very key role. And then you could just have combo implications with your Revelarks, with your Kiki Jikis.
Mm-hmm.
Like there's still space, there's still things to be had there.
Yeah.
No Goblin Welder in the cube. We've beat around the bush with Goblin Welder a lot of times. And also Hound of Gristlebrand is not terrible. That's a card that's missing 1 key word, that word being trample.
Or haste.
Oh yeah, I would have accepted haste. We also yes. The judges would have also accepted haste. Yes. But without either of those keywords on it, Hounds of
He's got the rest of the keywords you want, just not
right.
the good one.
Yeah. Yes, without artifact lands, Goblin Welder doesn't quite offer enough. We just cut Slaver too, so I think we might have had a little bit of a soliloquy there where we mentioned, like if Welder was close to having a shot before, its chances are only going slimmer and slimmer.
Yeah. So in terms of multicolored cards for red, they're a little all over the map, and part of this is because red is a very common splash color.
Right, because
cards like Lightning Bolt, Incinerate, every deck is
people want them.
Yeah. So a lot of the multicolor cards kind of reflect that to a degree in the sense of they're also a lot of them also kind of function like splash cards in the sense of like, well, I'm a blue deck and I already picked up this Lightning Bolt. Oh, I can take this Turn and Burn or this is a charm or whatever.
Does it really say the green is the discussion title of our cast? Oh.
What? No,
I guess you didn't update it.
I totally did.
Whatever. Anyway, Imperial Recruiter is kind of mid-range. That's another card we've been kicking around a lot recently. Is Imperial Recruiter. Thankfully, they made a black border version of it recently, so I'm much more interested in it. So, anyway, to get back to red in the multicolor section, red and black. Yes, there's a lot of splashing there. We've got the Dreadbores, we've got the Bit Blast, we've got the Sarkin and the Terminate.
But red, we try and focus as much as possible in the multicolored sections of what are the colors doing, and what do we want them to be? What is the color identity, for both sides? So, for example, in white-red, right, we've got a Planeswalker to play with the
Geddon Jockalhop strategies.
The Wildfire deck. That's also land denial, to play with Geddons as well as land destruction. We've got a big X-Spell to clear the board, potentially.
To, in theory, do everything. But I'll tell you what's the biggest letdown of 2013, and so far that's been Aurelius Fury.
It's not been that great. We've got Boros Charm, which is a great card for the aggressive decks.
Versatility.
Reach,
Charms are just versatile.
Reach, as well as countering stuff like that. We've got, aggressive guy that works well with red. You're attacking with other guys.
The both. It's good to point out that both white and red have so many great 1-drops. We mentioned.
Yeah.
I don't remember we mentioned. I feel like I mentioned this before. But Ranger of Eos feels very much like a Boros card, and Firemane Avenger plays into that strategy very, very well and very clearly.
Gisela being a creature, not only is a fine finisher in the white deck, but also something that survives Wildfire. And plays very well with Wildfire.
Conveniently lets the rest of your family survive Wildfire, should you ever end up in that situation.
And then Lightning Helix is, great burn as well as the life gain, so, the control deck, it's great for racing, it's great for buying time, things like that.
It would be a sad day, but it is very possible that we will cut Aurelius Fury for something like Assemble the Legion.
Within a year. I don't see this card making it to 2014.
I feel like I had a conversation with somebody recently about cutting Fury for some other
This card was like one of the most jaw-dropping spoils that I saw.
But no one, does it say creatures can't attack or something?
Players can't play non-creature spells.
That's it? This doesn't do anything to the creatures it deals damage to? Oh, tap each creature, yeah. But no one is ever okay, deal 1 to each of your 4 guys and 1 to your face on your upkeep.
I've had to do similar things like that.
Did you win that game?
I don't know.
I doubt it.
It was kill 2 small guys, tap your big guy, half silence you. But that was the best. So this card has been such a disappointment. I will fully agree with you. I do not see it making it to 2014.
Which is so. Again, the artwork is sweet. The foiling looks awesome.
Yeah.
So as where red white and red black, I feel like kind of just a little more touch and go on it. I think red green is probably the most cohesive color combination.
Red-green is looking to smash with the men.
And it does an excellent job of that, as
Blood
you will
Braid
see
Elf,
here.
obviously.
Five of the 6 cards are creatures.
Right. And the last one is a great reach card.
Yeah, and Stormline is so good that it's actually the card that will most often get snagged out of the red-green mage's hands.
It will most often get splashed.
Yeah.
By either red or green. But yeah, just having... I think Huntmaster of the Fells is the only of these cards that are not, like, very directly aggressive. And even that's fine in, like, almost any red-green aggressive deck. Like, him as a top end is just fine.
Soulfuge is in a different category, because it's... we moved all the hybrids. Anything that's hybrid, like an update or 2 ago at this point.
Anything that is hybrid is now in a mono-colored section.
Yeah, whatever we feel like it either has room for or fits in the best.
Some of them are like active decisions, like this should be a white card, this should be a blue card, whatever. And others are this color had space.
Exactly.
So it's not as pure as I suppose.
Also recently, thanks to Return to Ravnica Block, red-blue has been upgraded from the color combination of...
the worst color combination?
Yeah, we've upgraded from AIDS to... we don't even have HIV anymore. This color combination is full-blown useful. And it is, like, mostly full-blown value. When you've got Fire Ice
it's all about
we've got draw card Fire Ice, we've got Electrolyze draw card, we've got Prophetic Bolt draw card, we've got
almost every one of these cards draws a card in some
4 out of 6. I mean, you got Turn and Burn to do all kinds of cool things. Then you have a Planeswalker. I would say that probably in the next calendar year, every 2 color combination in Cube will have a Planeswalker.
Oh yeah, I think that's a well, okay. Have a Planeswalker available to it, or have a Planeswalker that is good enough for Cube?
We'll definitely have one available to it. The real question is, do we want to seep back down to the Tezzeret Agent of Shitty?
The Tybalt...
Well, no.
The Tybalt levels?
Blue-Black Tezzeret was in the Cube for a little while.
No, but like...
He was just a bit of a stretch
to
make
like,
happen.
when they print a blue-green... If they print blue-green...
Her name is Kalana. She already exists.
Okay.
She will be out soon.
Okay. Well, if she's... like Tybalt quality.
Oh well,
you know what I mean. Like,
but I'm thinking that card will be good. I don't know if it's going to be better than all of these cards.
A quick aside: Notion Thief, quite good.
We don't have any amazing Star City Games Legacy style stories of it blowing out people yet,
but it's certainly
3-power haste guy for Flash with whatever is just fine.
So anyway, the other. The other pairing, black red that we haven't talked about yet.
We touched on it. Kill,
and then like the top end. Olivia just being very good. We've kind of tried and split the difference here, where we've got removal that the aggressive deck would be willing to play because it's unconditional and cheap. Removal and value cards that the bigger deck wants to play because it can go that long game, and then. Creature for 2 a black and a red that the aggressive deck wants, and a creature for 2 a black and a red that the control deck wants.
Touche.
So
how did Soul Manipulation stay in the cube? I thought we cut that. Interesting. Whatever. There were some mentions about blue black. Dimir Charm, by the way, not a fan.
Uh-oh.
Oh, I deleted that. Because that was a lot. Like now, it's been updated. No, it's been updated. We'll go back through the archives and figure it out.
Mind Grind and Dimir. It's one of those stupid control finishers. We already have a stupid control finisher.
We already have one ridiculous blue fireball.
It's called Increasing Confusion. Yeah. We don't need any more.
So we check if we have other notes with red. Now, what cards... And we touched a little bit of this with the Wildfire decks, where it's like, what signals of what cards you want to see and take early to move into it.
Wildfire, Burning of Zinni.
Well, not... pick one, pack one. You're not... I don't think you're taking Wildfire, pick one, pack one that often.
No, and
pretty rarely, actually.
The thing about decks like Wildfire is, at least in our cube, it's certainly viable enough that if you want to force it and you get the opportunity to, you can. Like, if you open pick one, pack one Wildfire, you could take it and build that deck, and it would be okay. It would be playable fine. You probably 2-1 at least.
Yeah, but that's no one's goal when they start a cube.
But like, if you really want to play Wildfire for whatever reason, you can't. It's not like you have to. Pick your spot and then go, oh, it's Wildfire in time. Like, there are certain times when that's the case, and other times where there's not. And I think Wildfire is deep enough at this point where it's reasonable that you could make it work in most environments.
I still don't think you're taking it. I mean, my best advice for drafting Wildfire is evaluate the brown acceleration, then see these cards, then you have the access to get them and play them. I can't remember a time where I've ever like come right out of the gate and decided that it was time to. You're looking at some Sorcerer's Apprentice Magic cards.
Someone linked this.
Anyway, so that's how I feel about the Wildfire decks. And conversely, when we're moving into the Little Red Men or the aggressive red decks, so the most obvious signals we mentioned already, your Goblin Guide, your Sulfuric Vortex, maybe Shrine of Burning Rage. I think those are probably like the top 3 cards where it's like, I want to take this, and I probably want to move as closest to mono red as I can. You still lost.
Sorry,
in
I hadn't. Yeah.
Axel lost in Sorcerer's Apprentice over there.
So dreamy. What were we talking about?
We're drafting about the cards you want to take early if you want to move into the very heavily red-based strategies.
In terms of cards that I absolutely would first pick that are red, I would definitely be willing to first pick a Thundermaw Hellkite. I would definitely, absolutely be willing to first pick a Goblin Guide.
And these are cards that would push towards a green deck. Or, sorry, a red deck. I'm not taking Lightning Bolt and then being like, no. I'm going to draft a red deck.
No. And similarly, like, Fire Blast is not something I would first pick. I could make an argument for Hellrider just because that card is so insane in the aggressive red deck. In terms of spells, Sulfuric Vortex is absolutely a card that I could see taking first. If I really wanted to play Wildfire, or for some reason, quick aside on red. Also the only home of an unglued/unhinged card at this point in time. There's your trivia for the night.
It's barely an uncard because it has all real world. Feels like
this boat is real for the most part.
Words on it. Under what circumstances are you first picking like Inferno Titan?
In a situation similar to that first pack that we opened today.
Okay.
If there was an Inferno Titan,
just
in that
big
pack,
dirtily cards, and that one's just be the most powerful.
Yeah, like Inferno Titan is very powerful. It's fine. It's not something I want to play in the aggressive red deck, just because I never want anything that costs more than 4. Maybe the only 5 I want to play is Thundermaw Hellkite.
You should take the C out of Rakdos Cackler.
No, I believe that's your fault.
You should just, I don't care whose fault it is.
No, I do. It's yours.
How about let's talk about Kiki-Jiki Mirror-Breaker. Now, how often are you just like taking that guy for value?
Very rarely.
Very rarely. You would never.
The problem is that he's too slow to be in the red aggressive deck, and he's too small to be in the Wildfire deck. Or at the very least, he has too little impact because you probably don't have a lot of other targets. So he falls into this weird spot where he's like a red mid-range card, which is not a very red thing. He's great with other color combinations, but he's triple red. So you have to be in a situation where you've got some way to abuse him, either with the red creatures like Avalanche Riders, Goblin Settler, whatever, or you're in other colors and also have enough mana fixing to support triple red.
Okay. All right. Just wondering. I mean, people drastically value Kiki-Jiki differently, and I didn't know what your feelings were on it. I mean, personally, to me, it's mostly a combo card, but it also has just value because there are so many good just enters the battlefield cards.
Typically, I'll describe it like this: the smaller the pool of drafted cards is, the more I like Kiki-Jiki.
Interesting. See, I would almost say the opposite.
Really?
Because it's going to be harder to get fixing to make him like go off.
Right, but the
like
value,
when you Winston draft, it's really hard.
The value he provides is more relevant, and you're prioritizing fixing so heavily in the smaller environments anyway.
Well, okay, so that statement to me just feels like it just moves up proportionally. Like there's no difference in evaluation. This is the Plane Chase only the Beetleback Chief. It's a four power worth of goblins for 4 mana. You get a 2/2 and 2 1/1s.
So people are saying mana barbs. Mana barbs is in cube. I like mana barbs.
So Kenny's comment is actually very relevant, which is you're looking at vortex alternatives, cards that function very similar to vortex, and this is actually where we get to kind of move into artifacts. Yes, mana barbs. Mana barbs is never a card you have to pick very highly because you will usually see a table. Although I have definitely heard people audibly squeal when they saw it because they realized they couldn't beat it. One of my favorites was Taya Steele, who you may or may not know. She was drafting with my cube one time, and she literally stopped in her draft, looked at her pool, had to take it, and then it was like, I know you played this card. I just can't beat it. I was like, well, that's good. That's what you want. So you've got mana barbs, but more importantly, you've got Jinx Choker, Ankh of Mishra. It seems like we've come back to Shrine of Burning Rage a whole bunch. But those are the kind of cards that you're going to find a lot of extra damage from.
Non-creature sources of repetitive damage are very important to the deck. Because you want at least one, I would say. Just because there are going to be plenty of decks that can Wrath of God you just bigger dudes. Eventually, like getting through on the ground is not going to be realistic. But if you have a source where you're dealing them damage with Ankh of Mishra, you're dealing them damage with Jinx Choker,
and we're playing in a powered cube environment where moat is real.
Yeah,
and we want to make sure to make the red decks can actually win those matches. I mean. As a cube builder, you have to find that balance. We want to play with all the best cards in Magic. We don't want to not play Moat, but we don't want to have the scenario be where it's like, Moat, oh, well, I'm playing Mountains, I guess I'll just pick up my cards.
Because the mana bars and stuff like that do things that prevent damage to like Person Sanctuary. We don't. The reason that red gets that kind of like cards that shut the door on games or opponents in general, like mana barbs, where if you're ahead, it becomes like a very, very difficult proposition for your opponent to win through. The reason red gets that, and other colors don't necessarily have an answer to it exactly, is mostly on power level. Because of the way red is designed, especially the aggressive red deck, if you look at it on a card-to-card basis, red is playing a lot of like mediocre 2/1s and little guys.
It kind of comes back to philosophy. We can't, as red, we can't cheat the color pie. Like if there's one card, we found a way to beat Moat, but a card that the color red pretty much just has to scoop to is like Solitary Confinement.
Yeah,
we don't run Solitary Confinement in the queue. As much as I would love to, I think. I really love playing that card in Constructed, and I have a lot of fond memories of it. We just can't do it.
I think that if you look at the average cube deck, if you were to take the average mono-red aggressive deck out of the cube draft, and any of the other decks that were in that same draft, shuffle them and reveal a card at random from each one of the decks, the mono-red aggressive deck individual card that you were to flip would be less powerful than any of the other cards that you were shown that were not basic lands. So because it has that, it's all synergy and it's all speed. It gives up power for that super fast, super consistent start. It needs some ability to go back over the top, so that you don't always It's very easy if you don't have an ability like that to just always lose to Thrag Tusk and Moat, every match basically. So having the ability for red to kind of go back over the top in that way, I think, is important.
A little bit of Skullcrack action too while we're at it.
Yeah.
We do not currently run Goblin Bombardment. We ran Blasting Station for a little while. It didn't come up so much. I think if we had more circumstances where the red mage couldn't break through, we would have to start searching more into that area. And I like Goblin Bombardment as a fine card. I just think that it's almost too narrow and right now too much of a corner case.
I think if there was more... If there was more red token making, someone mentioned Beetleback Chief, Mog War Marshal is another example. If there was more stuff like that, I think Goblin Bombardment would be better. But those cards, to me, are a little just too slow for what the aggressive deck really wants.
Right, plus when you get matched up against big green beats or again anything with trample, they're just laughing at you taking all this time to play this garbage.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That being said, Krenko's Command, Dragon Fodder, even Krenko himself have been cards we considered about the past. I've been real close to kind of pulling the trigger on Krenko because I think he was kind of that mid-range card.
I think that there are a lot of value potentially to having I would say that, we talked a little bit about in green. If there was a color to get a tribal theme, it would be green and elves. And I think a close second behind that would be red and goblins. Just because, you could very easily morph, the aggressive red deck to being an aggressive goblins deck. And it wouldn't be...
I think our cube is too big for it, but I see what you're saying. I think for smaller cubes,
smaller cubes, absolutely.
You could craft a cube where Goblin Pile Driver would be very good.
Right. That's kind of what I'm saying. So obviously something like Krenko and Dragon's Fodder and things like that get better there, as well as Beetleback Chief, and there are other ones from over the history of Magic. So in our specific situation, are they that great? Not exactly, but I certainly see potential homes for them in other cubes.
Yeah, Krenko is that's really the card that's I'm the most on the fence about, and I think that if I was to put that in the cube, we would kind of have to almost shift a little bit more of the philosophy of red, because right now there isn't much of a mid-range. There's big red, there's little red, and there's some utility stuff in the middle. Again, those LD type creatures that really kind of
and I really like it the way it is, to be honest. And I think that if you were to try and we've got these two separate peaks into the cards are very separated. If you try and put something in the middle, effectively you have to drop the other two decks to make room for them in terms of depth and power level.
There's obviously still room in red. We are literally running Fissure.
No.
I mean, in reality, that card should really become Mizian Mortars pretty soon.
That was a mistake.
Yeah, we somehow bricked on that one. Just I gotta track down how Soul
The problem is we changed so many cards that we just assumed every bad card was coming out, and we were so wrong.
There's Far and Away. There's Notion Thief. Huh, that's so weird. How is that Soul Manipulation not Shadow Mage Infiltrator? Alright, whatever. We'll figure it out later.
Spoiler alert for the next change. What are we taking out from Mizian Mortars? Fissure.
Yeah, Fissure should have already come out of the cube. We're not sure how we missed that.
Another card that should have come out, spoiler alert for the next change update, Sacred Mesa.
Yeah.
That was a failed experiment.
Yeah,
I take full responsibility for that. So...
keeping your planes tapped all day long. Well, thanks for tuning in this week, ladies and... well, who are we kidding? Mostly gentlemen. You can catch us every week on Twitch TV/Ekamon. You can also find all this wonderful cube information on ekamon.blogspot.com. I'm going to guess in our hurried pace tonight we do not have shout-outs for our donations.
I mean, I could pull up PayPal really fast.
We are going to get to that.
Keep talking. Keep
Sorry,
talking.
I just... Kenny keeps coming back to Drakestone. He really wants to put us in. He really wants us to put it into the cube.
He is dreamy. I will say that.
So
I stared at that for way too long.
Yeah, that kind of got lost. Go back, watch it. You can still find us every week on MTG Cast. We are out there. We are still looking for new outlets for bringing content. And I'm so lazy about getting our logo put together. I really need to get that stuff. Anyway, so please support us, retweet us, go to your friends, link it to us. If you're Magic cheapskates out there, I don't blame you. If you're not, please send us a donation. We would like to thank Kai. You think is how that's pronounced?
Kai Temple.
Kai Temple. Thank you very much for your donation. We'd like to thank Emmanuel
Villarreal.
Villarreal. We'd like to thank you for your donation.
And G. Edward Buxton IV.
Thank you for your donation.
He's a very classy gentleman.
Very, very classy. He donates with the pinky out.
Yeah. Monocle, the whole thing. He donated a monocle, actually.
Yes, actually.
It's in the mail.
An actual monocle coming from England. Thank you very much to our most recent donations. Go to the blog page. Go to tappedout.net. Check out the cube on there. Waste hours of your life like we like to by just running some cube drafts. I need to make the bots a little bit smarter. They sure like to pass Mana Crypt a lot more than they should. Any other housekeeping type things?
Follow us on Twitter. Follow me on Twitch.
Yeah, adding us on Twitch is also very helpful. We're trying to break 200 little heart shape objects from people.
Maybe I might stream next week when they put up the crazy 11-pack sealed.
Oh, you should definitely do that. You should definitely be hitting up more of the LR cube whenever you have the chance to.
I'm a busy man.
I understand you're a busy man. I mean, maybe they start at like 4:30 Pacific and you're not quite home yet.
Yeah.
But I guess that's it. Check out Tap and Stack podcast. I'll be on there this week. I'm also guesting on Heavy Meta from Mana Deprived. I'll be with those guys tomorrow. And then at the end of this week, I will be guesting on the Deck Tees. So check
all over the place.
I am. It's a big week. And then I'll go back and hit up some previous... It's Community Cup season real soon. We got to...
We're hitting the pavement.
We got to get
Kissing
to the
babies everywhere.
There you go. What was before? Oh, it's a podcast called Tap and Sack. Houston, big ginger dude. He's been running that podcast for almost a year now. He's gone through some host changes, but I had done a show a long time ago. I just recently came back.
Deck Tees,
the Deck Tees episode with Michael Robles was real great. Go back and check that out. Adam Staborski did that one.
Any other podcasters who are listening, I'm also available for booking dates and children's birthday parties.
Step one, Eck, listen to some podcasts.
I know.
You have like a weird roadie day job too now. Like you should be able to like have some stuff on in the car when you're chilling with your tech buddies, introduce them to some Magic.
I don't drive that far.
I know. Yeah, you're just like local out only. All right, everyone. We are out. We'll